My father died on a Thursday. Not suddenly, he had been sick for over a year, but it still felt abrupt, like a door slamming shut in the middle of a sentence. We buried him on a rainy Monday morning. The kind of day where your clothes cling to your skin, and even God seems somber. My sister Victoria stood next to me in a sleek black dress and high heels that didn't sink once into the wet grass. Her makeup didn't smudge. Her tears, if they existed, never reached her chin. She gave a beautiful eulogy, spoke about legacy and pride and how much Dad believed in family. She even held my hand at one point. Tight, warm, convincing. And I, the idiot, believed her. After the service, we had the usual flow of visitors back at the house. People with heavy hugs and light words. Neighbors, old business partners, distant cousins who flew in just for show. Victoria played the role of gracious daughter effortlessly. She made tea, offered condolences, handed out tissues like a well-trained hostess. And then, when the last guest left and the silence returned, she turned to me in the kitchen and said, "We should talk about the estate." No pause. No soft entry. Just 6 words that sliced cleaner than any knife in that drawer. I blinked. It's only been 3 days. She tilted her head like I just suggested we live off-grid. Dad would have wanted it handled efficiently. You know how he hated mess. I didn't answer, because I knew something she didn't. What Victoria didn't know, or had forgotten, was that Dad had already discussed his will with me months before he passed. Quietly, privately, with a weight in his voice I'd never heard before. He'd said, "Your sister is smart, Evelyn, but smart people can be dangerous when they think they're owed something." He didn't ask me to fight her, didn't ask me to prove anything. He just said, "I trust you to do what's right, not what's easy." At the time, I didn't understand the full meaning, but I would, soon. That night, after the dishes were washed and the guests were gone, I went upstairs to my childhood bedroom. Victoria stayed downstairs on the phone with someone. I could hear snippets. "Yes, I'll send over the paperwork. 12 million, split cleanly. Evelyn won't be difficult. I'll handle her." 12 million. That was the number she latched onto. The rough total of our father's assets. Between the company's shares, real estate, and a few offshore accounts he never talked about in public. She wanted it halved. Immediately. She assumed it would be. What she didn't know? Dad's final will placed the entire estate, all $12 million, in a discretionary trust under my control. I wasn't the sole beneficiary. But I was the one holding the pen. And she didn't even have a seat at the table without my say-so. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid of her, but because I was already mourning something else. The last illusion that we were still, somehow, a family. When we were kids, Victoria used to braid my hair and tell me I'd grow up to be gentle and sweet, like Mom. But Mom died when I was 10, and Victoria stopped braiding my hair soon after. In its place, she braided her ambition into everything she touched. Law school, courtroom wins, real estate flips. And now? She wanted to braid the family fortune into her own legacy. I wasn't going to let her. Not out of revenge, but out of respect. For Dad, for truth, for the version of us that used to matter. Let her call me cold. I wasn't cold. I was prepared. The manila envelope came 2 days after the funeral. It had my full name on the front in my father's handwriting, not the usual crisp print of his law firm. Inside was a letter, 2 pages long. No formal greetings, no cliches, just my father speaking to me like a person, not a daughter. "If you're reading this," he wrote, "I'm gone. And you're about to walk into a storm." I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of untouched coffee, letting every word hit harder than the last. Victoria will come with lawyers, with accusations, with her version of entitlement wrapped in the language of fairness. She's not evil, Evelyn, just hungry. And hunger makes people cruel. But you see people. You see through people. That's why I chose you. He explained that months before his health declined, he had revised his will, not out of favoritism, not to punish Victoria, but because, in his words, only one of you still understands that legacy isn't about who has more, it's about who protects what matters. He named me sole trustee of the Stone Family Trust. I would control the distribution of all assets, no automatic inheritance, no equal split, just one clause. Evelyn Stone shall act in accordance with her discretion and conscience. That was it. I could choose to give Victoria everything or nothing. I reread the document twice. Then again, it felt like a trap. like a test with no right answer. Because no matter what I did, someone would say I was wrong. That afternoon, Victoria texted. Dad would want us to move forward quickly. Have you contacted the trust lawyer yet? Not, how are you? Not, do you want to talk about it? Just business, numbers, the speed of greed. I didn't reply. Instead, I called my father's longtime attorney, Mr. Caldwell. He sounded surprised to hear from me, but not confused. Ah, so you found the letter. You knew? He asked me not to tell you until you reached out yourself. There was a pause. Victoria's already called me 4 times, pushed hard. I haven't responded. I nodded, even though he couldn't see. What happens now? He was quiet for a beat longer. Now? Now we wait for her to push harder, and we hold the line. The next day, a certified envelope arrived at my door. Inside, a letterhead from Victoria's firm, demanding full financial transparency, division of all real and liquid assets, and a signed intent to comply with equal sibling inheritance rights. I smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. Dad knew her better than she knew herself. That night, I sat down and started drafting my response. Polite, unemotional, precise. Per the legal authority granted to me as sole trustee of the Stone Family Trust, I acknowledge receipt of your request. As the named executor, I will review all matters in due course and inform you of any decisions deemed appropriate. Kindly refrain from further pressure or legal posturing. It will not influence the outcome, nor will it hasten it. I closed the email with 2 words, respectfully Evelyn Stone. No threats, no explanations, just a mirror, to show her who she was becoming. The next day she called me, not to talk, to shout. Do you think you're better than me? This isn't about money, it's about fairness. Dad would never, I interrupted her calmly. He did, Victoria, he did all of this, I didn't ask for it. She was breathing hard now, furious. Then give me my half, or I'll take it. You can try. Click. I set the phone down and didn't cry. I expected to feel guilt, or anger, or shame. Instead, I felt something else. Clarity. Because the will? It wasn't just a document. It was a map of the woman my father believed I could be. Not vengeful, not afraid, just steady. And I would be. Even if the storm got louder. Even if my sister turned the whole world against me. Because he trusted me with the fire. Not to burn anyone, but to keep what was good from going cold. It didn't take long. Barely 2 weeks after I sent my email, Victoria filed suit. Petition for equitable distribution? The document said, but that wasn't what it meant. What it really said was, if I can't have it quietly, I'll make you bleed for it publicly. The court date came faster than I thought it would. Victoria's lawyers were aggressive, sharp, hungry. They sent endless discovery demands, requested financial records, questioned my competence as trustee, suggested I was emotionally unstable and acting with bias. She even filed an emergency motion to freeze the trust's assets, claiming I was trying to divert or hide funds. It was absurd, but it worked. People started whispering. At work, my principal called me into his office. Just checking in, he said, smiling too tightly. Everything okay at home? The school board had received an anonymous email attaching the court filings. Someone was trying to shake my world at its foundation. And I didn't have to guess who. In the weeks before the hearing, my world shrank. Friends stopped replying. My aunt, our father's sister, left me a voicemail saying she was ashamed of me. That Victoria had always carried the family name with dignity, and that Dad would be heartbroken by my actions. I deleted the message without listening to the rest. Because I knew what Dad had really said, and it didn't sound like that. The morning of the hearing, I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. I didn't wear black. I wore gray, neutral, grounded, the color of storms you survive, not run from. Caldwell met me outside the courthouse. Ready? He asked. I nodded, not because I felt brave, but because I refused to let her write the whole story. The courtroom was filled with suits, whispers, and the quiet click of keyboards. Victoria sat across from me in a tailored navy dress, flanked by 2 lawyers. She didn't look at me once. Not when I entered. Not when we were sworn in. Not even when I spoke. When I took the stand, her lawyer tried to rattle me. Miss Stone, do you deny that your father had once considered splitting the estate equally? No, he had, years ago. So what changed? His understanding of who we became. He smirked. Interesting. So you're claiming he found you morally superior to your sister? No, I said. Calm, firm. He found me trustworthy. That landed hard. I saw it ripple through the room. They pushed further. You hold full control over a $12 million estate. Why haven't you disbursed a single dollar to your sister? Because my father entrusted me with discretion, and I'm exercising it. So this is about revenge? No, it's about boundaries. Victoria finally spoke during her testimony. Tears in her eyes, voice quivering just enough to sound authentic. I loved my father. I sat by his side during his chemo. I held his hand when he took his last breath. And now my own sister is using his death to play queen of the castle. I didn't flinch, because I knew the truth. She hadn't been at the hospital the last 3 weeks. She'd skipped his final chemotherapy to attend a corporate retreat. I didn't say that in court, because I didn't need to win by tearing her down. I just needed to stand tall. The judge didn't rule that day. He said he would review the evidence. Take time. But I already knew how it would go. Not because I was arrogant, because I knew my father, and more importantly, the law was on my side. Outside the courthouse, reporters hovered, microphones, questions, flashbulbs. Miss Stone, is it true you refused to share your father's estate? Is this a family betrayal or financial mismanagement? I didn't answer any of them. I walked to the sidewalk, took a breath, and let the noise blur. Mr. Caldwell joined me a few moments later. You handled yourself well, he said. She made me the villain, I murmured. No, he replied. She revealed she already thought you were. As we drove away, I glanced at the courthouse one last time. Not in anger, not in fear. Just as a reminder. That even when the world decides what you are, you still get to decide who you'll be. It started with a phone call. 2 weeks after the hearing, just as I was beginning to breathe normally again, Mr. Caldwell called. His voice was sharper than usual, tighter. Evelyn, he said, are you sitting down? My chest tightened. What happened? I just received a file from your father's former CFO. He waited until the trial ended to deliver it. What's in it? A pause. Proof. A paper trail. Something your father anticipated but didn't live to see confirmed. The file contained dozens of pages, emails, transfers, internal memos. It detailed a sequence of unauthorized withdrawals, manipulations, and misappropriations, all linked to one name. Victoria Stone. 2 years before our father passed, Victoria had convinced him to let her handle part of the Stone Foundation's investment strategy, a modernization, she called it. He gave her access to certain accounts, and over time, small amounts vanished. Shifted. Reinvested in shell companies no one had heard of, amounts too small at first to draw attention. But over 18 months, the losses stacked to over $1.2 million. And worse, the documents included drafts of a forged, alternate will Victoria had attempted to process through a junior clerk. The clerk never filed it. But he kept a scanned copy and a conscience, and now he'd sent it to us. I sat in silence, holding the printed pages with fingers that had gone cold. This wasn't just selfishness anymore. It was fraud. It was deception. It was betrayal. Not of me, but of our father. Mr. Caldwell asked the question I'd been dreading. Do you want to file criminal charges? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I opened my father's letter again, the one he left me before he died. My eyes landed on one line I hadn't paid much attention to the first time. Let the truth rise, Evelyn. But don't become the executioner. So I said, no, let the court see it, but I won't press charges. That's not what he would have wanted. We submitted the evidence as part of a supplemental filing. The judge reviewed it privately. 3 days later, he ruled. The courtroom was packed the day of the decision. Victoria arrived in a white blouse and pearl earrings, like purity could be worn. She didn't look at me as the judge began, but her eyes snapped up the moment he said, "This court finds that the trustee acted within her legal authority, and that the petitioner, Ms. Victoria Stone, engaged in activity that raises significant ethical and financial concerns." Her lips parted, but no words came. He continued, "The discretionary nature of the Stone Family Trust places all authority in the hands of Miss Evelyn Stone. This ruling upholds that designation. Furthermore, based on submitted evidence, the court declines to entertain further petitions from the petitioner regarding this trust. No inheritance, no appeal, no recourse, just nothing." Victoria didn't cry. She stood frozen, hands trembling, then turned and walked out of the courtroom without a word. No reporters followed this time, no quotes, no headlines, just silence. I stayed behind, alone in the wood-paneled room long after everyone had left. Not to gloat, just to breathe. Because this wasn't victory. This was survival. Outside the courthouse, Mr. Caldwell handed me a sealed envelope. Your father asked me to give you this if things went the way he expected. I opened it right there. Inside was a single handwritten note. You did well. You didn't fight to win. You fought to protect. That's all I ever wanted. I closed my eyes and let it land in my chest like a stone, skipping once, twice, then sinking to the bottom. Victoria never reached out after that. Not to apologize, not to rage. She just disappeared from my life. And in a way, I think that was the real end of the funeral. Not the one where we buried our father. The one where I buried the idea that blood always binds. The news didn't make national headlines. Just a quiet legal brief buried on page 5 of the city paper. Stone family trust dispute resolved in favor of younger daughter. No drama, no details, no pictures. And that was exactly how I wanted it. Victoria vanished from our family group chats. The ones she used to dominate with holiday plans and passive-aggressive sign-offs. Our aunts stopped calling. Most of them had chosen sides long ago. The silence they left in their absence was oddly comforting. Clean. Like a house finally empty after a storm. The estate's assets sat untouched for a while. $12 million. It wasn't a number. It was a weight. And for weeks, I wasn't sure how to lift it. But then, I opened Dad's old desk drawer. Tucked in the back, underneath dusty letters, dried pens, and a cracked pair of reading glasses, was a list. Handwritten, simple, titled, If Evelyn Asks, Names, Causes, Small organizations I had never heard of. Miss Langley, my 7th grade teacher, lost her pension. Rodrigo, the gardener, 2 kids in community college. St. Bridget's Hospice, where your mother passed peacefully. Next to each was a rough number. Not millions, thousands, tens of thousands. But the message was clear. He didn't want his legacy to end in courtrooms or headlines. He wanted it to continue quietly. So that's what I did. I met with the trust's accountant and began the process. $1 million to fully fund a scholarship program for first-generation college students at my high school. $500,000 to St. Bridget's Hospice, with a new wing named for my mother. $250,000 to restore the public library where Dad used to take us every Saturday. Smaller gifts, handwritten checks to people on Dad's list. They all cried. Most thought it was a scam. None had expected it. That made it even more beautiful. I kept just $2 million for myself, enough to pay off my mortgage, save for the future, live without fear. But not enough to forget what it meant to work hard, because my father worked until the week before he died. Not because he had to, but because he believed. Comfort makes you lazy, struggle makes you decent. As for Victoria, she left the city. I heard through an old mutual friend that she moved to a smaller town 2 states over. Started working as a freelance consultant. Changed her last name on LinkedIn. I suppose that was her way of starting over. She didn't contact me, didn't ask for forgiveness, and I didn't offer it. Not out of anger, out of peace. Sometimes, the only closure you get is the one you give yourself. And I had no more stories to write about her. I visited my father's grave on a warm Sunday in July. No flowers, just me, a folded chair, and the wind. I sat beside the headstone for over an hour, didn't cry, didn't talk, just breathed. Then, before I left, I whispered, I didn't let you down. And for the first time since the funeral, I believed it. The money was never the real inheritance, it was the choice. The chance to break a pattern, to protect something sacred, to walk through fire and come out, not perfect, not untouched, but whole. People still talk. Not loudly, not always in front of me, but I hear things. She froze her own sister out. $12 million and she didn't even share a dime with family. Her father must be turning in his grave. I've learned to let them speak, because people love a villain, and when you don't give them tears, they'll call it arrogance. But the truth is simpler. I'm not cold. I just refuse to burn. In the months that followed, I returned to my life. I kept teaching, I walked to work, I made coffee in the same chipped mug every morning. The money didn't change me because it was never about money, it was about integrity. And sometimes, doing the right thing doesn't look like kindness. Sometimes it looks like a locked door, a closed hand, a quiet refusal. One of my coworkers, Melissa, stopped me in the teacher's lounge a few weeks later. I read about your case, she said. I hope you're okay. I smiled. I'm better than okay. I'm clean. She blinked. That's not what most people would say. I just nodded. That's because most people think survival should look like forgiveness. The last time I saw Victoria, truly saw her, was on a cold January morning. I was dropping off some books at the city library. She walked out as I walked in. Our eyes met. Just for a moment. No words, no anger, just history. She looked thinner, tired, her designer coat replaced by something simpler. I nodded. She didn't nod back, and that was fine, because some chapters don't need epilogues. I still visit Dad's grave, not on birthdays or anniversaries, just on quiet afternoons when the world forgets to be noisy. I sit, I breathe, I remember the man who raised me to listen more than speak, to choose decency over comfort, to trust silence when truth is under siege. And when I leave, I never feel broken. I feel chosen. Some people win court battles, others win public favor. Me, I walked through betrayal, grief, and greed, and I didn't become what tried to destroy me. That's more than a win. That's liberation. Let them think I'm cold. Let them whisper in rooms I no longer enter. Let them write their own endings to my story. Because I don't owe them a softer version of myself to make them comfortable. I owe myself the life I fought to protect. Not from my sister, not from the world, but from becoming the very thing I stood against. So no, I won't reach out. I won't correct their versions. I won't explain to strangers that I cried more nights than they'll ever know. I won't defend the stillness I chose over the chaos I was offered. Let them think I'm cold, because between cold silence and burning shame, I chose the silence. And somehow it saved me.